What's up, guys? If any coaches or players are interested in sharing their story or giving knowledge, hit me up on Instagram.
All right. Today on Coach Beat Talks, I'm here with Coach Sid. What position do you coach and where do you coach?
I coach the offensive line, tight ends. I coach at Chaminade College Preparatory in West Hills, California.
And when did your coaching career start?
My first coaching gig was in 2014 at my alma mater, West Covina High School in West Covina, California.
What led you into coaching?
What led me into coaching? Well, I'm one of six. I'm number two of six kids. So being a big brother, you're always coaching your little brothers, whether it's something good or something bad. So that was always just natural. And then I think who really changed my perspective into coaching was my offensive line coach at UCLA was Adrian Clem, who I think is one of the best coaches in the world. He really showed me how easy the game was, and that changed my whole perspective. And I was like, whoa. I was like, in my mind, I was like, man, like, I can see coaching in my future. Because he told me about his story. His story was he was in Mexico growing out a beard, hanging out. He retired from the NFL. And a coach from SMU said, hey, man, like, you want to try out this coaching thing? And he showed up there and was like, he was like, yeah, he's like, I'll do this. He's like, we're going to pay you. He's like, we're going to pay me. He's like, what are you going to pay me? He's like, we're going to pay you $100,000. He's like, you're going to pay me $100,000 to be here? I was like, dang, like, I was like, whoa. This is what he was telling me. And I was like, yeah, that's how your coaching career started? He's like, yep, SMU. So I always knew like coaching was in the cards for me, not only because of that, but in my high school as well with Coach Majori and Coach Dunn and the influence they had in my life.
And taking a step back from coaching, when did you start playing football?
I started playing football so I played flag football in middle school because I showed up to like Pop Warner and they were like, you got to wear a bag and run. I said, so wait a minute, I'm going to be running the whole time while everyone else is practicing? Yeah, you got to show us. They're like, told me, you got to show us that you really want it. I said, I'm good. I'll just play in high school. So I played flag football in middle school because I didn't want to wear a bag and run in the sun. And then my first time playing football was in freshman year, tackle football. Of course, I went out for quarterback. And then Coach Platt laughed at me. He was our freshman coach. He laughed at me. He goes, you want to play quarterback? He's like, why don't you go play tight end? So I played tight end, D end, my freshman year. And then, they converted me to offensive tackle.
And when did you start taking football serious?
I take football serious till I was a junior in high school. When one day Coach Dunn showed up at my house. So we had two-a-days. Two-a-days are when you had a full padded practice in the morning and a full padded practice in the afternoon. They don't have that anymore because someone in the AC room thinks it's too much for kids to be in the sun, which it isn't. It's character building. So Coach Dunn shows up to my house. Keep in mind, I'm walking to practice at 7 in the morning. We have practice at 8. School's like a 20-minute walk for me, 30-minute walk. And I start walking up the street, and I was like, you know what? I'll just go to the second practice. Keep in mind, like, I've already been, like, I was already a slap and flaky about going to practice in the weight room all the time. So I kind of had, like, a little, like, history of not showing up to practice. So Coach Dunn shows up to my house. He knocked on the door, and I was like, he got through the dogs, and I was like, no way. And I hear his voice, and my brother answers the door, and he goes, hey, is Sid here? And my brother's like, yeah, let me get him. And I'm in the hallway like, oh, no, what's going on? I was like, damn. I looked at my brother like, why did you tell him I wasn't here? He was like, that's your problem. Go talk to him. I was like, damn, okay. So he was like, what's up, Sid? Why weren't you at practice? So I was like, man, Coach Dunn. I was like, I was going to go, man. I'm going to tell you the truth, okay? I was going to go. I walked up the street, and I just turned around and said, I'll just go to the second practice. He goes, so you need a ride? He goes, you have so much potential. He would always tell me that. You have so much potential. He goes, but you don't show up. So he's like, so you need a ride? I said, you'd give me a ride? And he was like, yeah, I'll give you a ride. He goes, I'll pick you up this afternoon. And literally from that moment on, like the positive momentum for me started to build, and that year, my junior year, going to my junior year, really changed the rest of my life.
And going into your junior year, how did you start prepping into looking into the future of going to college?
Well, so remember I told you I had a habit of not showing up. So it wasn't
Right.
just the weight room; it was also school. So like I wouldn't do good in school, so I had 6 D's and F's I had to make up. So I had like the first goal was have a good GPA my junior year. So this junior year, the first year my first semester I did okay, and then second semester is when I started making up classes. So I took night school and summer school, and within a year I made up 6 D's and F's to position myself to be a qualifier. There was just one small problem that happened was that from my junior to my senior year, the NCAA changed the requirement from 15 core classes to 16 core classes, and no one was aware because my counselor is not used to dealing with Division I athletes, so she wasn't aware, and she thought I just wanted to graduate high school, which was not the case. I mean, of course, it's the case, but wasn't what we spoke about. You know what I mean? So, going from making up all those classes and then waiting in December and January, and like me and my coach was like, why aren't we getting offers? Is because I wasn't a qualifier. So schools, if you're not a qualifier and you have aspirations of being a Division I or collegiate athlete at all, if you don't have grades, schools aren't going to waste their time, no matter what the film looks like. So that's what happened to me. My film was good, but I didn't have the grades, or I didn't have one class. So that led me. So like in retrospect, there were so many options I could have did, but no, we didn't know of them at the time. But now that I've been in so many situations, I know of so many other loopholes to get where we need to be, that won't happen to any of the athletes I deal with because I will be on top of it. So that led me to go down to JUCO. That's junior college for those that don't know.
What was that experience going to JUCO?
So JUCO for me was a wonderful experience. I mean, JUCO in general is a grind because real life starts to happen. It's not like you're in high school and your mommy and daddy are paying for everything. People get jobs, people get girlfriends, people have kids, and they start to forget about what the main thing is. And for me, the main thing was academics and football. You know what I mean? So football was never the issue for me. It was more academics. My first stop at JUCO, that's another thing. JUCO kids, it's like the transfer portal now. They hop around all the time. I don't know how the kids have eligibility left. So my first year, I was at Mount Sac. It was a top JUCO in the nation. I played against, so many talented defensive linemen. Vi went to Kansas State. Boj went to Utah State. They were the defensive tackles. Bruce Irving went to West Virginia. We had like our linebackers were legit. Our corners were legit. It was just such a fun experience for me, especially when we got into pads. Because when we were not in pads, like it was like hard because these guys are bigger, faster, stronger, and I'm like, yo, what's going on? And I just kept telling myself like, wait till we get pads, and I was like, I'm gonna show them what's up, and we got pads on, and everything just shifted. You know what I mean? Because like, football is football. You know what I mean? It's me against you. I know the snap count. I know the play. I know the angle I need to play on. I know I need to play with leverage, and I'm gonna be nasty. So we won a national championship my first year in JUCO, but it didn't work out because the academics weren't lining up with the football priority. So then, much like Chaminade, Citrus College gave me an academic roadmap and structure that I needed because football wasn't the issue. It was the academics, and I needed to make sure my academic counselor had my best interest and knew what my goals and aspirations were. And shout out to Alicia Longyear. She absolutely did and understood what I needed and helped me put that plan together to get out of JUCO in 1 year. So my second JUCO was Citrus College in Glendora, California. Head coach Ron Ponciano. We went 2-8, so it's a big difference from winning a national championship to going to 2-8. But at the end of the day, JUCO is about results. It's about performance. How did you perform? Because you're not always going to win, but are you performing when you're not winning? and four of the five offensive linemen went Division One. Two went to Arkansas, Chris Stringer and Jason Peacock. Addison Bachman went to Arizona, and I went to UCLA. So I would say it was a successful JUCO experience, if I do so say myself.
And what advice would you give to JUCO players trying to get into universities?
I would tell the JUCO players not to be so concerned about the university. Just be concerned with your performance. Be concerned with your academics. Don't get caught up in the party life, the girls, and if you have a job, make sure you understand that job's temporary and it's not forever. And make sure you're using football and don't let football use you. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these programs look out for themselves, and make sure your program has your best interest in it.
What was the experience going from JUCO to college football at UCLA?
Football, it wasn't much of a the football aspect wasn't much of a transition, because like I said, like when you were at Mount Sac, it was like being at Division I school at the time with so much Division I talent everywhere. So like the speed of I went against Bruce Irving, dude. Like the speed wasn't any different. Like I was already used to that. It was more like the academic understanding the quarter system and stuff like that. And then being able to adjust on the fly, I would say, was the biggest transition on the football side, because I showed up after the first day of camp and everyone was looking at me like, who's this big Mexican? And then I'm like there with the mindset of I have something to prove. You know what I mean? Like I don't think I talked to anyone for the first 2 to 3 days. And then the second day of practice, like my first day in practice, they threw me with the ones. And I told the coach, like, hey, I just got here. I don't know the play. He's like, you gonna figure them out? And he was right. I sure did.
What would you what advice would you give to those going to those big universities? What's something that you feel like is the foundation of like school football? What's the first thing that you did to like solidify yourself on your routine in college?
Oh man. All right. Not that I did, but I wish I would have done, which I did after my first semester or first quarter there. I would make sure I have a relationship with my academic advisor. Make sure I'm getting the help that I need academically. And then find a mentor on the football team. Find a big brother that's going to teach you the way and of what you want. Whoever's embodying what you envision for your life, make sure that they are that, because that's who you want to emulate.
And
You know
who was that mentor to you? You wanna share some stories?
Let me see. Jeff Baca, when I first got there, was the one who really took the time and put me, like we went to the meeting room and he drew up the offense and he really taught me everything, and I was able to pick it up fast. So shout out to Jeff Baca. He's a firefighter now. Great man.
How was your college career and how did it end?
My college career, I thought it was full of adversity. I had a good time. I really appreciated my time at UCLA. It didn't end how I wanted. I think football should be played a certain way, and if it's not played a certain way, it doesn't sit well with me. And with my history of my concussions, I wasn't able to play my style of football, my brand of football. That got me there. And so I made the decision to medically retire and step away from football.
And what helped you go through that and accept the fact that you had to medically retire?
I think I went through a couple years of dealing with the accepting of it. I would just say eventually, my family was always there. So, shout out to my family, my dad, my brothers, my mom, my dad, my best friend. They were always there for me. My cousin was there for me. So my family was there when I needed them.
And what would you tell other players that are going through the same thing you were going then? Deciding to medically retire.
What I would advise them is that if they still have passion for the game, to stay involved with it and bypass the people that go to the top people, like the head coach, the AD, and tell them like, hey, I still want to be involved with this if it's something you're passionate about. Instead of like changing your routine that you've been going through for 10 years of weights, school, practice, games, and then literally changing your whole lifestyle in a couple of days because you're no longer on the team is a hard thing to deal with. So if you still love the game, be involved with it to some capacity, because it's been a part of you for a long time, and it's opened doors for you. I would say that surround yourself with people that are going to be positive and uplifting in these hard times, because you're going to deal with adversity internally more than anything, and make sure you're talking to the people that love and care about you.
And when you transitioned into your coaching career, was it an immediate love for coaching, or did it take some time compared to when you were playing?
Um, I think in the beginning it was a little hard because, well, one, I was an assistant coach, so I wasn't the head coach, like the head of the thing. So like, when I'm not saying I know more or know it all, but when you think like the game has changed and there's like things that need to be changed, it's kind of hard. So like how I started, what made me fall in love with football, with coaching, was when I started volunteering at my high school with Eric Covedo. I saw that he had potential, but he wasn't practicing hard. And like my biggest thing with him was like, hey, bro, if you really want to dominate, you got to practice hard. I said, you don't practice hard enough. And like little by little, he started like practicing hard and started pancaking people and dominating at people. And then it transferred to Friday night, where he was so dominant that he became the offensive league MVP as an offensive lineman, which I think is pretty exceptional. So he's the one who really made me say, yeah, I could do this.
What's the biggest thing you had to learn from being a coach and a player?
Man, patience. The hardest thing was like understanding when you play at a high level, like when you play for a coach like Coach Clem, who's like, hey, I'm telling you this, we're in the meeting room, we walk through it, you better be able to do it. You have to be able to adapt right away. So whatever information you just processed, you have to go out and perform. So I was used to that environment, and it wasn't so much at the West Covina, because I was just an assistant. So I was more like a background guy, like whispering and like telling like kids, hey, this is what you do this, do this. But when I went to Citrus and I got the head offensive line job there, the next season, it was hard because I'm thinking these kids were, a little more serious about football, but they kind of weren't, you know what I mean? But it was also my job not to have them play to my expectation and my standard. I have to meet them where they're at and then get them to rise to the standard of football that I'm accustomed to coaching now. You know what I mean? But what helped me with that was, right away I was like a bull, and I was like on them hard and just telling them like, hey, not being much of not being empathetic and understanding for them, and just expecting and demanding performance. And then, but what reminded me, like midway through that season, I thought back to the summer, that summer before I took the job, was a youth camp I did for the San Diego Chargers. The center, I can't remember his name, but I worked with the 6th and 7th grade team, and I was able to teach them, and like I was super patient with them and understanding with them. And so I had that mind. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just take that approach with these guys. And so we went from giving up double-digit sacks and being frustrated and being able to run the ball to being able to be competitive with the top teams in California towards the end of the season, for league, because we went from averaging like 200 yards to like 400 and 500 yards, and it was because the boys were I met them where they were at, and then we started to perform because I was patient and empathetic with them.
This is a two-part question, but what was your why as a player and what's your why as a coach?
All right, so my why as a player, like personally, it was just to be a dog and be nasty and be the Mexican Larry Allen is how I envisioned myself. But like the bigger why was because I wanted to make my family proud. My dad is an immigrant from Mexico. He was in the desert for 3 days once he crossed the border with the coyote. So like understanding like where my people come from and being at the number one university in the world is what it was about for me, and also just being one of six children and showing my siblings like you have this greatness in you, and it's not just my siblings, but I think everyone has the ability to be great, but it just takes someone to give them a little push or put the arm around them and be like, hey, you can do this, but you just got to believe and buy in. My why as a coach is to, one, mold young men to be leaders on the field, in the classroom, in the communities, to also help these young men accomplish and fulfill their goals of playing collegiate football wherever their talent takes them. And I think most importantly, just helping them understand that they have greatness in them and that through adversity, they can fulfill that. And if they get knocked down, just to continue to rise.
And how did you handle that adversity with the weight on your shoulders of making your family proud and your siblings to be someone that they look up to?
So my grandpa and my dad always had the analogy of racehorses, and how they have blinders on, and that's why you see racehorses never looking left and right, because they have the blinders here and they're just focused on what's the task at hand, and that's getting to the finish line. I never really paid attention once I got dialed in. I never paid attention to anything that was going on because everything was just fuel to my fire. It wasn't I wouldn't see things and be like, oh, this is getting down. Like, hell no. I would be like, no, all right, bet. I felt like, Muhammad Ali. I'm going to show you how great I am. That's how I always feel. I think pressure's a privilege. I think it was a privilege. It's been a privilege. It is a privilege to continue to set the bar and push the bar. And each year, as a coach, I have the ability and the opportunity to show people what we're made of, what Chaminade football is made of, what it's like to be an offensive lineman at Chaminade High School. You know what I mean? Like, it means, not Chaminade High School, Chaminade College Preparatory. It means something, and I love it. You know what I mean? I tell the boys there is no pressure. It's just opportunity to show people what you have and what you're made of. And I think we fall back to the level of our training. You know what I mean?
What as an offensive line coach, what do you look for in young offensive linemen?
One thing I look for is let's say this is a multi-answered question right here.
There we go.
All right, so so you look for big hands, long arms. You want to look for hip flexibility, knee flexibility, ankle flexibility. Like, that's just like the outside looking in, right? Now, like, mindset, like, all right, how do you respond when things don't go your way? How do you respond when you lose a rep? So, like, me as a coach, I go to practices, I go to games, and I watch. How do you respond? Okay, you respond well. Okay, when something goes bad, you get pissed off and you go harder. I like that. You know what I mean? And then another thing is, like, how are you as a teammate? You know what I mean? Like, when his defense up there, are you cheering them on, or are you just sitting on the bench? So there's a lot of things I look at. You know what I mean? And then also as a recruiter, the recruiting, I look at the parents. You know what I mean? Like, is your dad big? Is your mom big? Are your cousins big? Like, that matters. Genetics, yes.
And what's something that offensive linemen should focus on the most, or to solidify the foundation of, I'm gonna get this done and I'm gonna work on my tools,
All right, P, you know better than everybody, bro. The most important thing you can have, the most important skill set in offensive line is your stance. If you don't have a stable stance, if you don't have a strong stance, you can't play. You can't play with velocity. You can't play with power. You know what I mean? If you don't have a good stance, you can't play. You can't pull with power. You can't run someone off the ball with power. You can't get out of your stance with power. You can't set vertical. You can't set 45. I think if you have a good stance, you have a good chance.
What do you think is changing in young offensive linemen throughout the years? What's something that's being overlooked?
Something that's being overlooked is the nastiness of the offensive lineman. I feel like that's what separates people, because I think everyone's getting caught up on the height, the stars, this and that. But this game's about three things: angles, leverage, and nastiness. If you can do all that with a certain attitude, I think you're good in my book any day of the week.
Offensive linemen's off season. What should the routine look like?
I like this question. I think there needs to be, of course, I think lifting is important, but how you lift, like you need to be in, you need to do lifts that are going to translate to performance. What does that look like? Anything in the hinge position, you know what I mean? I would stay away from deadlifts for sure. Personally, I feel like you're not really going to be in that position. You know what I mean? Like to do it at a heavy. If you do it at a light amount, that's fine. I think lifting, so having for sure having a mobility session, some mobility in your routine, some lifting, some sprinting, some mechanical sprinting, some mechanical work. So you're not just out there running sloppy. You actually have some form and look like a big athlete. And I think focusing on your craft. I mean, everyone's getting caught up on this 5-on-5. I'm not trying to say anything bad against it, but you bang your body all year from, I would say, August, and if you have a good season, December. That's a lot of banging on your body. Like, you need to be able to, like, simmer down a little bit and focus on your skill set and acquiring skills. So Charles Bentley says skill acquisition. Acquire skills, you know what I mean? Like, look at your film or have someone look at your film and be like, all right, what do I need to focus on to improve my game and take it to the next level? You know what I mean? Whether that be learning how to use your hands in pass pro and striking with violence, or running a defender off the ball on a man block, you know what I mean? Like, that's the moneymaker block right there. Can you move another man against his will? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I love. You know what I mean? Like, the challenge of us, like, you know we're gonna run the ball, but what you gonna do about it? Like when we played Bishop Ahmad, it was 4th and 1, and we go to the house. Like, yeah, you knew we were gonna run the ball. What are you gonna do about it? You know what I mean? So I think that, and then I also think you need to be a student of the game. You need to you need to watch film. You need to get on the board. You need to drop the defense, drop your offense, and really master every part of your skill, because that's what's gonna be at the next level.
And what should a lineman that is undersized focus on, because you can't do anything about size?
Be a strong, nasty dog. Literally. You're blessed with leverage. You know what I mean? You're blessed with leverage. I think being very explosive and quick, and you can work on those kind of things. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a skill that can be enhanced. If you can be strong and use your leverage to your advantage, you can dominate. I don't think size is like it's more about your will to dominate than anything. But they could like, I think they should focus on the power and quickness and using their leverage to their advantage.
Now let's get to where you coach. What's the Chaminade environment like? What should kids be looking forward to when they come to the school?
Man, so let's go. Let's do like the whole process of it. Okay, from an academic standpoint, you're going to be challenged, which I think is important, because everyone thinks like student athletes get this pass that hey, you're an athlete, like you ain't got to do your work. No, that's not the truth, brother. You're gonna have to do your work, and at Chaminade it actually prepares you to get that. Will it be challenging? Of course. You know what I mean? But once you get into a rhythm and you get into the habit of what it's like to be at a place like Chaminade, then you begin to enjoy your experience, right? And then I think the best thing about Chaminade is the community. The students are amazing. They're welcoming. You know what I mean? They're caring. If you need help, they'll go out of their way to help you. When I think that goes a long way. Character matters, in my book. From a football standpoint, you're gonna get coaching. You're gonna get developed. Everything we do is like at the next level. So we do our PowerPoints. We film everything at practice. And the technique is a little bit different from everybody else, but I feel like the techniques we use on the offensive line is where the game is at and where it's headed. And yeah, and you will be engulfed by our culture. You know what I mean? Like at that, you'll come in with a mindset, and you'll end the season. You'll have a different mindset. Believe that. A mindset to dominate, not to just show up and be happy to be there. We have a I get to attitude, not I have to attitude. We get to go out and work on our opponent. We get to go out and lift weights. We get to go out and practice. We get to, you know what I mean?
What advice would you give to kids in Pop Warner transitioning into high school football?
Man, I would just say going with the attitude of I'm just here to learn. And I'm just here to get better. You know what I mean? Don't go in with the have your own personal goals, but go in with the mindset of I'm just here to get better, and I'm here to attack. That's it. Just come in with the mindset of being a sponge and taking in all this information and trust the process, man. Too many of these kids just want to start, and if they don't start, they leave. Like, come on, dude, see it through. Trust the process, man. Like, we have so many examples of kids just trusting the process. Like, for example, last year, Chris Champion played running back at his old school, came over here, played defensive end for us, and got a scholarship to Nevada. That's trusting the process. Yeah, you want to play running back, but you want to get a scholarship? Just put your hand in the dirt and get active. And that's what he did. Trust the process, man.
What players from Chaminade demonstrated that?
So Chris Champion was one. I feel like David Abajian is another one. Wanted to be a defensive lineman and then transitioned to offensive line, and now he's at the University of Kansas. 3-year starter, dominant, dog. Another kid that right now, Logan Carpenter, man, like all he does is adapt and overcome. That's all he does. Whether it was playing, he came in as a quarterback, went to receiver, from receiver to running back, from running back back to receiver, from receiver to safety, and did everything at a high level, man. And that's just trusting the process. It's like, hey, the team needs you to do this, and I'm here for it. You know what I mean? And that just goes to the testament of the kids trusting the coaches and understanding we have their best interest at heart. At the end of the day, it's not about us. It's never about us. You know what I mean? Yeah, can we do everything to help you? Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's about you, the student athlete, accepting and opening to trusting us with your future, because we don't get anything out of it. It's you.
What do you think is the biggest obstacle that kids are going through now?
Themselves, their ego. I think like that's what the hardest thing is right now. It's like Coach Ponce talking about, perception and reality. Everyone's perception is I'm this. But this is the reality. The reality is your work ethic and your day-to-day routine that's gonna get you to where you think reality, and that's gonna help you really balance out. So once you stop, like, it's good to have goals and aspirations, but you're saying this, you think this is your reality, this is your perception, this is your reality. You got to balance that out, and that's a hard conversation to have. But the faster you come to the realization and humble yourself, now we can start to work. Now we can start to get real results, because now you're being real with yourself. You know what I mean? And the kids always feel like, hey, you're getting on me. Like, hey, brother, I love you and I care about you. And I'm going to keep it a buck with you, man. I don't get anything from you not having the real perception. If no one wants to tell you the truth in your life, brother, I got you.
And what advice would you give to them, being that in today's age it's so easy to go on your phone and see someone doing better than you?
Put the phone down and look in the mirror and get real with yourself. And then write down everything that you do in your daily habit and on a day-to-day basis, and does that match up to where you see yourself in the future? If it doesn't, make the adjustments. All right, what do I need to add? All right, you know what? I need to wake up a little bit earlier and I got to go work out, get an extra workout. What are you doing in the unseen hours to separate yourself? So what you do at practice, when we go to practice in the off season, when we lift the weights by ourselves, that's the minimum, brother. It's what are you doing to separate yourself? Are you getting an extra workout? Are you doing extra running? You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing in the unseen hours to create that separation? What's his man? I can't remember his name right now. But one of these, man, he's a motivational speaker and author. He's with he was with Alabama and and Kansas State. He has this thing is that champions create distance. What are you doing creates distance from you and your next person. You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to. And until you come to that realization, put the controller down, put the phone down. All that's not going anywhere. Our time is limited. Like Mateo, for example, was like, "Hey, brother, like, remember I was at your practice in 8th grade? You're about to be a senior. How fast did it go? It went fast. That's how fast it goes. We have a limited amount of time. Let's maximize it."
What did you do for yourself to realize that? If
So
you're ever in a situation like that.
what? I mean, I was in a situation like that because I was the kid that wasn't doing well in school. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but I made up 6 D's and F's in a year. You know what I mean? And like that was because I was like, well, all right, this is what's holding me back from being recruited, right? All right, let's make it a habit. Like, what do I gotta do? That was a 0 period. That was night school, all year long. Seriously. I got lucky. Shout out to Mr. Guzman. I had got a D in his class, and I told him like, "Yo, Mr. Guzman, like I made up 5 classes, and I was like, yours is the last one I have to make up. Like, what's up? Like, what do I gotta do to make up this D?" He was like, he literally told me to pick up a classroom, and he changed my grade from a D to a B. Shout out to Mr. Guzman. That was just lucky, you know what I mean? But he understood, like, he seen me grow. He was my geography teacher in my freshman year. But one thing I did is I wrote down my goals. And then, like, you know, when you're in high school, you start getting all these college letters. And I opened up all the letters and I put them in front of my desk. So I had a desk. And so here was my desk. Here are the letters. And then here are my goals in the middle. And so every time I felt like not doing nothing, I would just look up and be like, "Nah, man, like those are your goals. You can't accomplish them if you just watch TV and play Madden." But the funny thing is, the more on top of your work you're on, the more time you have to do things that you want to do. You know what I mean? But you have to sacrifice an hour or two. If you're serious about it. If you're just a person that likes to talk about it and then everything sounds good, and then like in 10 years you're one of those shoulda, coulda, woulda guys, I should have did this or I could have did this, but you know, then you start to blame others. It's about accountability, brother. You hold yourself accountable first.
Now you coached for X amount of time. You obviously played the game. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Where do I see myself in 5 years, man? Could be a head coach or in the college level is where I envision myself.
And what are you doing every day to make that possible?
I mean, I think adding to my belt, like this year has been learning the admission sides and the recruiting sides and understanding the territories in the San Fernando Valley and surrounding areas, which I think is important if I want to be in this area. And then I constantly read books. I'm constantly watching coaching clinics. Constantly adding to my bag as far as I can't ask the kids. Remember accountability. I can't ask the kids to go and get better if I'm not pushing myself to come with new ideas and new drills and new this, because it's not fair. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm constantly doing something. Like I also added like a social media aspect to it. You know what I mean? Like so literally this year's been nothing but growth and change, and it's been hard because everything comes at a sacrifice. And I'm married. My wife is wonderful, Samira. I love her. I have 2 beautiful daughters. So what price is being paid? My time with my family is being paid. But it's like, okay, I had to sacrifice for a little bit longer, and because it's for my family at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, I can't tell my daughters, go live your dream, but daddy didn't chase his.
Yeah.
So